Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Beyond Wisdom with another video. I know this isn't a live stream video either, so that's a good thing, I take it. But anyways, Nier Automata has been selling well on the Xbox One, and it's in the top 10, and apparently Xbox fans like titles like this, and there should be more available. And I hope Phil Spencer keeps up to his word about bringing Japanese titles to the console, because not everyone has to gravitate towards the PlayStation to actually play these titles. But I digress. Also, in other news too, Overwatch, they had a skin that came out a few months back. It's a Pink Mercy skin, and actually raised $12 million for breast cancer research, and that's a good thing. That's and 100% of the profits actually go towards the breast research. That Activision, Blizzard ain't even receiving a dime from this. It's just really cool that you, in a good way, to actually promote your title for a good cause without having to have this microtransactions thing lingering over everything, every microtransaction being bad. But the topic that I'm actually going to go over after all that good news is that in the UK, from BBC News, this is an article written by Newsbeat reporter Alyssa Judge. It is referring to video games and mental health. Nobody's properly talking. She states the following. Because we've all heard the headlines: video games cause addiction, violence, and distress. The fear of video games has evolved since the 1980s. It is called ludotrophobia, is what it's called, and has raised new concerns. Gaming disorders are now officially even a medical condition. There's another side of the story. Video game producer Johnny Ciondini says it's important to look at the good done by video games. Difficult times. His YouTube series Low Batteries examines how video games help players cope with their mental health struggles. It is based on his own experiences. For pretty much my whole life, I use video games as a support tool to help me deal with difficult times, he tells Newsbeat. If anxiety or depression overwhelms them, he often dives into a virtual world to stop my internal monologue from having such a prominent place in my brain. He believes playing video games too much is often a symptom of wider mental health issues rather than a cause of them. I think instead of puzzling over whether video game X or Y might be addictive, we should be questioning which people might be more susceptible to developing problematic behaviors involving video games. What's the science behind this? Well, Oxford University's Andy Probitsky, Director of Research at the Oxford Internet Institute, studies how video games impact our mental health. His findings show about 0.3% of gamers might experience problems controlling the time they spend playing video games. While that figure works out to be thousands of Britons, he believes, if gaming was truly addictive, you'd imagine it would have been able to build addiction clinics fast enough. They'd be running out of cement, he says. Video game addiction has been talked about since the early days of the arcades, while individual titles led to debate over the industry's effect of mental health. Grand Theft Auto has faced claims that increased aggression, while World of Warcraft was criticized as far back as 2005 over allegations that damages players' interpersonal skills. So in other words, they blame video games for antisocial behaviors, which, from my experience of, I don't know, 30 plus years of playing, is pretty social. You get to hang out with your friends over the weekends. You know, it's a cool thing to hang out, rent like 4 or 5 games, over the weekend, and hang out with like 3 or 4 friends, even 5 friends, just chilling. It's more of a social issue because you actually have an affection towards the product or the topic or the game or whatever in hand. It works that way with movies too. It works that way with books. That's what I think there's book clubs for. But I digress. Back to the article. Andy's research shows that while gaming does cause emotional changes in players, these are short-lived usually. A spike in happiness if you win, or rage quit. That's stopping a game in anger, in case you didn't know. That happens often. The industry often depends defend itself against accusations is harmful by pointing to player testimonies that games helped them through difficult periods or allowed them to build strong communities of friends. But the evidence for long-term benefits is just as sketchy as the evidence which says there are problems. The World Health Organization has classified gaming disorder as a mental health condition where an individual prioritizes games over life activities for more than 12 months with negative consequences. Private clinics exist in the UK to treat this condition. Technology addiction specialist Dr. Richard Graham says he sees about 50 new cases of digital addiction each year. You could state this addiction towards anything. Humans are an insatiably appetite-driven society when it comes to things that are new, bright, shiny, anything that engages with them. The latest song by an artist, you have to have it, or have to download it, repeat it over and over again. The latest blockbuster movie, have to hit the movie theater. The second comes out, or people pre-order games. Pre-order culture is there for a reason. It's like that. So you could actually throw these addiction things towards anything, but having a place, a private clinic, stuff like this, like they state in this article, do help if a person thinks they might have dire needs of like having not enough money to pay for your rent or food, stuff like that too, and just go towards your addiction. It makes tons of sense to be doing stuff like this, and I'm glad things like this exist. But the broader public, when it comes to the World Health Organization's classification of video game addiction, makes it seem like it just gives a broad blanket scope of video games in general being addictive, or as like a disease. Just, you know, it's hard to split the topic lines between that, especially with people who have no knowledge or just to see things from the outside when it comes to playing video games. Back to the topic, though. Learning to understand. Johnny agrees that the games industry has a responsibility to look after players and address any potential problems. He gives a recent example actually. It's loot boxes. If you're not a gamer, let me explain. Loot boxes are virtual crates that contain goodies like weapons, costumes, and other perks. In a lot of games, you'll win some loot boxes for free, but they could be bought with real-world money. Loot boxes are controversial because they're tempting, but a risk. Johnny says game makers should be identifying if games are encouraging compulsive behavior such as gambling. He says loot boxes are relatively recent phenomena, and there's a good reason for this regulation. But while gaming can pose unique problems, it offers benefits that other mediums like TV and books cannot. Laura Kate Dale from gaming website Kotaku says gaming is one of the most powerful storytelling platforms creators have, because players can actively solve a character's problems rather than passively watch them when they put it in a TV drama. She points to video games that help players walk a mile in the shoes of these enduring mental health problems. If you look at games like the second episode of Life is Strange, it dealt with some difficult themes like suicide. After it dealt with these difficult scenes, it brought up advice. It had a little bar to come up that would say if you had a difficult time with some of the issues in the game, here's some numbers that we call for support. Life is Strange prompted conversations about suicide in 2015, 2 years before the TV drama 13 Reasons Why, which also attempted to tackle the issue. In a video game, the girls take control. Players take control of a girl who develops the ability to rewind time. The story is about the importance of decision making and how one single action can have a chain reaction that affects many people. I'd like to ask if anyone has any issues with suicide or how their feelings are towards video games as a story medium, and I'd like to have everyone, if they want to stop in and drop a line in the comment section if this kind of topic hits you on the head, or if I should discuss topics like this more into the future. Since everybody else talks about the resolution wars, PS5, Xbox One, I would still like to give a broad shout out to the broadband bullies for any support that stops by. Just have a decent weekend, and I hope you guys enjoy yourself, and thanks again for stopping by.